I came across an image this morning that just stopped me cold. It's a cover from Der Spiegel, which is one of Germany's most prominent news magazines. Donald Trump sitting behind the Resolute desk, and through the windows behind him, America is burning. Flames, smoke, people running in the streets. And he just sits there, holding a lit match. The headline reads, Der Führerteufel. Pardon my German, no sprechen Sie Deutsch. But what that means is the firebug. And beneath that, the headline reads, a president sets his country on fire. And I stared at that image for a long time because it captured something I haven't been able to put into words, though I've tried. I'm too young to remember JFK talking to the nation, trying to calm it during the Cuban Missile Crisis, or Lyndon Johnson looking into the camera, telling Americans that we shall overcome. But I grew up hearing those stories. I learned about presidents who stood before the country at moments when Americans were frightened, angry, grieving, or lost, and understood that the job required them to reach for something larger than themselves. Not better men, necessarily, certainly not perfect, just presidents. I remember Ronald Reagan talking about a shining city on a hill. I remember George H.W. Bush when the Soviet Union collapsed. And I remember Bill Clinton trying to comfort a shattered Oklahoma City. I remember George W. Bush standing in the rubble after 9/11, trying to find words for something none of us had words for. And I remember Barack Obama standing inside Mother Emanuel after 9 Black Americans were murdered in their church, pausing in front of the pulpit and beginning to sing Amazing Grace. And no matter what you think of any of those men, and God knows I've had plenty of disagreements with some of them, they seem to understand something that feels almost quaint now. The presidency was bigger than they were. There were moments when the country needed something from its president besides politics. Comfort, restraint, courage, decency. Maybe it's just the ability to understand that the person hurting on the other side of the television screen is a human being. And then came Donald Trump. It isn't simply that I disagree with him. I've disagreed with presidents all my life. It's that I've never seen a president who seemed to enjoy the division itself. And the cruelty isn't some unfortunate byproduct of the politics. The cruelty is the politics. Find somebody weaker, somebody different, somebody frightened, an immigrant, a trans kid, a grieving family, a journalist, a protester, anybody that can be turned into an enemy. Point, mock, humiliate, threaten, and then wait for the applause. And that's the part I'll never get used to, the laughter. People cheering for cruelty, as though cruelty itself was proof that their side was winning. And maybe that's what frightens me the most. Donald Trump didn't invent every ugly thing in America, but he found it, he recognized it, and he mined it. He understood how powerful resentment could be if somebody gave people permission not to feel ashamed of it. And then he handed it a microphone. Presidents before him failed us. Some failed us terribly. They lied, they abused power, they made catastrophic decisions whose consequences are still with us. This isn't nostalgia for some imaginary America where presidents were always honorable and government was always good. It wasn't. But the moments when the country was wounded, most of them at least understood that it was the president's responsibility to at least try to bind the wound, not stick his finger in it and make it bleed harder because the crowd loves the show. I don't need a president to be a hero. I don't need a saint. I do not worship these people. But at this point, I would settle for a president who understands that half the country isn't his enemy, because this office doesn't belong to Donald Trump. It didn't belong to Biden, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Reagan, or Kennedy. It belongs to us. They are only entrusted with it for a little while. And maybe that's why that Der Spiegel cover affected me so deeply. And here's the part I didn't know when I first saw it. That cover isn't new. It was published in June of 2020, 5 years before Americans put Donald Trump back in the White House, 5 years before where we are right now. They were looking across the Atlantic at America and saw the president calmly sitting behind his desk while his country burned. They put a lit match in his hand. It was a warning. We'd already lived through enough to know what that warning meant. We'd seen the chaos, we'd heard the cruelty, we'd watched the division. We knew who he was. Yet, years later, enough Americans decided to hand him the keys to that office again. And that's the part I cannot get past. Not that Germany saw something in Donald Trump that America couldn't see. We saw it too. And we put him back behind that desk anyway. But now I look at that cover differently. I don't see a piece of political art from 2020. I see a warning from the past. The president sitting behind the resolute desk, the country burning out through the windows. A lit match between his fingers. They saw the fire. We handed him another match.